are you looking up tonight? Mulling under the moonlight. Never thought to let it go. Soul searching out of your window. Days, never sleep unless your head's by mine. Holding on to what we call divine. Do you think we're running out of time? Too late to stay, too dark for you to head home. Lay here with me, we'll watch another episode. Don't say goodnight. Stay by my side. Daylight rushes in over your emerald eyes. Guess that means that we're all out of time. Like a dream, you only come out at night. Am I crazy? Watch the sun as it's fading. Can't believe I'm waiting around on you. So complicated. I thought that you would leave it, yet here we are under the moon. Too late to stay, too dark for you to head home. Lay here with me, we'll watch another episode. Don't say goodnight. Stay by my side. Too late to stay, too dark for you to head home. Lay here with me, we'll watch another episode. Don't say goodnight. Stay by my side. Too late to stay, too dark for you to head home. Lay here with me, we'll watch another episode. Don't say goodnight. Stay by my side.
Hello there. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another installment of Touchline Talk. In today's installment, episode, Q&A, extravaganza, the main overarching topic is going to be on the Foden situation. I've quite cheekily labelled this stream the Foden problem. You guys all know my thoughts on that. We'll be dissecting that. I think if we have time, we'll also just have a general chat about the weekend coming up. Maybe we can touch on the latest situation, Ari Echeverry, or the alleged situation. Anyway, I know someone's in the chat's already put something in about the Southampton player that we are linked with. Maybe we can briefly touch on that as well. But I do feel like the overarching topic should be the Foden one. We're still in international break situation, so there's not really too much actual Manchester City football to talk about, but this has obviously come out, and we have addressed it, in fairness, across the entirety of the season, but it just seems like quite an apt time to discuss it in an actual standalone stream. Again, I don't think I'm going to be saying anything revolutionary or new in today's show that I haven't already said in previous shows, but maybe it's just like a nice catch-all sort of show where that can happen. Get your thoughts in the chat about, how your day's going, what plans you have, etc. Please make sure to leave a like on the video as you are entering as well. Southampton want 100 million. Yeah, that's insane. Thank you so much. Ari Valpas, what a fantastic name that is. We'll get to that in a moment. Thank you so much for becoming an Albino Ultra. Welcome to the Ultras Club, my mate. You beautiful, beautiful human being. We'll get into that. B. Hello, Dave. How you doing, you beautiful man? Hello, Sarthak. I've been great, Naveen. Thank you very much. I know I've been promising it. You guys know there have been issues behind the scenes, but I can say the Echeverry video will be coming out this week. It's getting there. We are now in the editing process, so we are getting there. Lazio loan, I'm all in. That's on the potential Echeverri situation. In other news, Juma Bar played a full 90 for Cagliari loan. Big up. Ian says, we're not implying there isn't a Foden problem. Well, we'll be talking about that, Ian. And yeah, thank you so much, Ari, for becoming in the Beania Ultra. Shout out to you, my mate. Your random footballer is Manuel Lanzini. There you go. In all his West Ham glory. There you go. That's your random footballer. Hope you enjoy. That's your pull. Not the best pull, can't lie, but you can't win them all, can you? You can't win them all. Not another what? I don't know what that means, Zubair. Day's been alright. Casual routine, beautiful. Big up to you, Owen. A up to you, Blue Ronnie. And Jack, by the way, is a Man City fan, but also a Southampton fan. It's insane, but they're well within their rights to ask for it. He's their player, and they have no reason to sell him unless someone meets their valuation much better financially, too. Yeah. And maybe we will chat about that later. TLDR on Dibbling. Is that how I pronounce his name? Dibbling. We shouldn't be signing him unless the idea is to immediately loan him back out, because he's 19 years old. I don't know why we would be signing him for the now. That would surely be one for the future. So I'd be very cautious and concerned if we did sign him and didn't immediately loan him out, because I don't know what he would do here other than not develop. You get me? The main topic is in the thumbnail. It's in the title. It is the Phil Foden situation, problem. Don't know what terminology we want to use there. I'm going to say scenario, situation, something like that. This has not been a new point of contention / discussion this season. It's actually, bizarrely, something that has been in the works since, I would say, February of 2024. I would say that is when this properly started, in terms of the very odd turning on this player. Not from a City perspective, which we'll get into later. Just more so I don't even know what I'm trying to say. More so just like, I guess mainly from non-City fans and just like wider social media in general. And as we know, nowadays social media does set the agenda, so that does matter. It was around that time that Foden was properly being pushed to win Player of the Season, genuinely. Because up until around December, he was still in the conversation. Like, I think he was, top 3 players at least. I'd say probably second only to maybe Salah, maybe. I can't recall exactly. But he was certainly in the conversation in around, up until December-ish. And then from sort of like January onwards, from outsiders looking in, those who don't necessarily watch him week in, week out, for me, the performances were pretty much the same, but the goals went up, and I think then people started to take a bit more notice, and that's when he was properly being linked with, being put, whether the term is pushed, advocated for a player of the season. And that rubbed a lot of people up the wrong way. A lot of people up the wrong way in the certainly, again, from what I saw in the social media space. They didn't like that. Interesting. Don't really know what the argument against it was, but that's sort of, as I say, when I'm going to say the revisionism began in terms of what Foden is as a player. And this is a very long-winded opening gambit, but hopefully it will make sense when I get to it. Please bear with me, guys. It will make sense. Because that's when, as I say, the revisionism began. And that's when people started this very odd idea of what Foden is as a player and indeed what he had been as a player up until that point. Now, the case was he is, quote, only a, quote, turn and shoot player. He's not a creative player at all. And he's actually just I guess, just inherently not good enough. I guess would maybe be like the implication therein as well. And I started as early as I say, from my anecdotal experience anyway, around February 2024-ish. And that has seeped into this season as well. And by seeped, I mean it's overtaken everything. There is now a worryingly common consensus. Not consensus isn't the right term. There's a very worrying idea going around that is what he is as a player, and that's what he always has been as a player. Now, I would challenge anyone to find me, conversations from, let's say, 2021 or 2022, where the common consensus online was that is what Foden was. If you asked anyone around that period to, list his top 3 attributes in around 2022, let's say, as an argument, I think, well, certainly me, I think the vast majority would say that his top 3 attributes would definitely be first touch. I think they would be just general passing. And I think they would also probably be the ability to receive the ball quickly and then dribble with it quickly and aggressively. That would probably be my answer for his top 3 attributes, from a couple years ago. I still think that's the case, by the way, there or thereabouts. No one would have said his top attribute was, or rather his only attribute was turning and shooting. Maybe you'd pop it into the top 5, but around that point, no one would have ever said that. So I just struggle to see how we've gone from a situation where a couple years ago, it was never the consensus that is what he was as a player, but now we've come to 2025. Now, not only is that his best attribute, that's actually his only trait and his only attribute. This is why I struggle with this whole conversation, because as far as I can tell, it isn't one founded in reason or logic or reality. Do you see what I mean? This is why I struggle with the whole concept to begin with, because we can't actually seemingly have an actual honest chat about it, because too many people are wanting to revise history and revise what he is / what he was as a player. And don't worry, I will get into this season, but it's important that we paint a picture of context. What's the evidence for that? And also, here's another one. Last season was his only good season. That's another one that's cropped up from this year. The last season was really the only year where Foden had a good season. And even that is downplayed. Even that is downplayed. It's apparently not even good, it's just great. Yeah? Sorry, yeah. They don't even accept it's great. They just say, yeah, it was good last year, whatever. They then try to belittle that by saying, and now this is the worst, quote, downfall following a Player of the Year season. We'll get into why that's wrong in a moment, I'm sure. But let's go through the years, shall we? Just bust that myth in a minute. Just for this moment. I would contend that Foden's been instrumental to City winning trophies since 2019, as early as that. Let's track his seasons. 17-18. Yeah, I think he was 18. Someone can correct me in the chat, please do. I believe he was 18 years old in the Centurion year. Didn't do anything. Why would he? He's 18 years old. It's his first season with the club. I think that Pep just about got him to 5, because I think back then you had to have 5 Premier League appearances to even get a medal. He just about got 5 appearances in the league. He got the medal. He wasn't really involved. It was his first season being bedded into a side which contained, David Silva, De Bruyne, Gundogan, Bernardo Silva, Sterling, Sane, etc. It was a nothing player. 2018, likewise. So this is now the domestic quadruple winning year. But 2019, again, very, very tiny role in that season. But still scored the only goal against Spurs in a 1-0 win, days after we lost to them in that horrible, Champions League game. You've got to give him that. Without that goal, without that win, we don't actually win the title that year. This is why I say that we can go back as early as 2019, I would contend. Season after that, so what's that? That was 1920. So that 1920 was probably the first... I don't know when you term a breakout season, but 1920 was when he started to actually get, more consistent starts. I don't have the stats in front. I don't have the data in front of me. Maybe I should have done. But 1920 was the first season where he properly got slightly integrated, more so into the side. Don't know the exact number of starts in the league, but it was more than it had ever been up until that point. Again, not a fully fledged, pure member of the starting situation, but some very impressive performances last season. For example, against Liverpool at the Etihad was fantastic in that game. And I think that season, guys, please correct me if I'm wrong, I believe, because we won the League Cup so many times in that period, I believe City won the League Cup in that year, in 2020. Again, please correct me if I'm wrong. And I believe Foden was actually man of the match in that cup final, I believe. In an off year as well, by the way. So even in our off year, still contributing to get a trophy, if my history is correct there. Following season was, what was it, 2020-21. Yeah, absolutely instrumental in terms of getting us into our first ever Champions League final. Fantastic performances against Dortmund and PSG in particular. And up until this point, Foden's not even being played in his ideal position, which is wherever you want to cut it. We can all agree that it's somewhere in the centre. Doesn't really matter where it is, but somewhere centrally. As long as he's playing centrally, we can and ah about should he be a left 10, should he be a right 10, a left 8, a right 8, an 8-10 hybrid? Should he be as long as it's somewhere in the centre, we don't really care, do we? So up until this point, he was playing out on the left and he was playing out on the right as well. And as I say, instrumental in getting us to our first Champions League final, and also very important in terms of winning us the title that season. Again, we weren't particularly good that year. Foden was. That's a good point by Naveen. Outstage Haaland and Mbappe. I remember doing that. I think I remember uploading like a VOD back then, because that's when I only did watch-alongs. I remember doing a VOD. I'm sure I titled it, Foden outshines Haaland and Mbappe, something like, I can't remember exactly what it was. It was something like that. But you're absolutely right. So instrumental in getting us to our first Champions League final. The following season, I would say, is maybe the most impressive from a sort of surprise perspective, maybe, because the next season was the year where we just didn't have a striker at all. I mean, that season we also didn't really have a striker, but we still technically had Aguero on and off. The season after, we just didn't have one. Didn't have one at all. And who was our best option at false 9? Not his position, not his role, but still able to be our best false 9 option and help win us the title in one of the highest qualities Premier League seasons ever in terms of the top level between City and Liverpool. It was him. We can even pick out individual moments in that season. For example, that ridiculous performance at Anfield, where he scored that fantastic goal and should have got James Milner sent. I can't remember if he should have won a penalty or was it just he should have got Milner sent off. I can't remember the exact one. It was something like that. Or maybe he drew the yellow from Milner and then Bernardo Silva should have got Milner sent off. Something like that. And then there was also the infamous, there's so many so many moments in that season, but another one was, I was just about to say that, the quote, hand of rod game, must-win game at Everton. And who scored it? So right now, up until this point, we've established that he won us trophies in 2019, in the following season, and gone to the Champions League final in the season after that, in totally different positions and roles, etc. And then the treble-winning year. What's most frustrating about the treble-winning year is that the first half of the season, he was on to have his best ever season by a fair margin. He got the ridiculous hat-trick against Man United, for example. He was, again, we'll get onto this weird revisionism that's happening in a moment. I have a fantastic stat for you guys, which will just blow the mental argument out of the water. This weird idea that Foden and Haaland aren't compatible, they don't play well together. Well, I mean, just use your eyes. That's not true. But in particular, in the first half of that season, I thought the two were playing fantastically well together. Goes to the World Cup, again, despite what people want to say, had a good World Cup. I believe he either scored or assisted in before we got knocked out against France. I can't recall exactly. Had a good World Cup, though. Came back, had appendicitis, got a foot injury, came back, got a further foot injury. By the time he comes back into the side, the treble-winning side has already been established. He can't get back into it, and that's reasonable. I wouldn't have wanted to force him back into it. Run for a treble. You don't fix what isn't broken unless there's an injury, and then you have to. Even in that season, after his surgery and after the injuries, he comes on in a Champions League final for Kevin De Bruyne and plays well, by the way. Plays quite well. So unfortunate to not have a goal. I think he should have done better there in terms of the finishing, but overall, it was actually a really good showing in that Champions League final. Even in terms of the goal and the build up to it, his movements before the goal was actually quite impressive. I remember I was in Istanbul. I remember someone sat next to me shouting at Foden saying, "Don't go sideways or backwards." I can't remember, but sometimes you got to go backwards to go forwards. He went backwards. He moved. He dragged someone out of position. All of a sudden, I think it was Akanji or Bernardo had space, and the goal is scored therein. So he played well in the Champions League final when he came on. And last season, the first season where he's actually played in the centre for the majority of the season, and he wins us the title. Not single-handedly, obviously, like no one can do it single-handedly, but he was our best player, wasn't he? He won Player of the Season. So before we even talk about the season that's happening now, and again, I know I've been chatting a long time there for like 20 minutes or so, it's important to establish this context. Because if we don't, then all of a sudden, people decide, again, they lie that, and as I say, they revise and say that he's never had a good year before last season. Now, again, if anyone here wants to contest those series and sequence of events, please do so now. Because what I've just said there is not even a subjective thing. It's an objective reality that since 2019, he has been integral in terms of us winning those trophies. Whether it was on the right, whether it was on the left, whether it was as a striker, whether it was at a false 9, whether it was as a 10, or even last season sometimes as an 8. Please, if you would like to contest those events that I've just outlined there, please proceed to do so now. Speak now or forever hold your peace. If anyone wants to contest those series of events, speak now or forever hold your peace. We shouldn't really be arguing it. Would not say integral. Okay, so how do we win the title last season then? Without him, tell me that. How do we get to the Champions League final without him in 2021? Tell me that. He was man of the match in a League Cup final. Tell me how that isn't an integral contribution. Tell me. Don't know if you can. So that's the background, and that's the context of what we are now going to discuss. We are not, as City fans, shouldn't be doing this. We are not going to allow people to lie about one of our players. We are not going to allow them to revise history. We're not going to allow them to downplay what he's already achieved in his career. I don't have the exact data in front of me. I probably should have done this. The amount of goal contributions alone that he's already got at 24 years old for City is staggering. It is mental. This isn't normal. It isn't normal. Yeah? One mediocre season ain't going to change all of that. One poor season compared to the high standards that we all have for him ain't going to change all that. It's very important to apply that context. People talk about, well, how much credit in the bank should he get? Well, just have a think about all that stuff that I've just outlined there. Reach your own conclusion. Maybe more than like 2/3 of a season. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe at least a season. I would contend even more. But maybe we'll get into that later. Let's talk about this season now, shall we? Again, it's just very important to touch on that context. In fact, no. Before we do that, let me just get into some comments because I've spoken a lot there. He matches GA in back-to-back seasons. Again, I don't have the data in front of me. Would not surprise me. Andrew says, I don't think we can judge Nunes yet. He's never had to run in his natural position. Says, we didn't buy him to be a right back. I'd maybe keep him to be a utility player for sure. I don't know whether he'll ever be a central player, to be honest with you. Nunes, I do agree with that, Smian. I do agree with that. I don't agree with this, though, because as I just outlined before, he's played on the left, he's played on the right, he's played at false nine, he's played at striker, he's played at second striker, and he succeeded in all of them. But there is a difference between a position and a role. Let's take right wing, for example. Now, Foden had a whole season at right wing and City won the title. So he can play on the right, and he can play there well. But there is a big difference between a right winger where, in Savio, let's say, and a right winger in someone like a Foden who's playing there. You can't play them in the same way. One is going to thrive if they are tasked with holding the width and doing standing starts 1v1s. The other isn't. The other is going to want an overlapping option to provide that width and to bounce off players centrally as well, and to be able to drift inside more centrally. That's the thing. It's not a case of... In fact, here as a microcosm, here is the best example I think I can find. Do you guys remember the Manchester derby last season at the Etihad? Now, in that game, Foden played at right wing. Notice the difference between the first half and the second half. In the first half, I did an analysis video on this. Feel free to go back and watch it. In the first half, Foden was a touchline winger. I called that the graveyard shift. And basically nothing happened offensively for City because he's not that sort of player. Second half, Walker pushed up to provide that offensive utility. Now all of a sudden, Foden's still technically playing on the right, but he's allowed to drift more centrally. And we win the game. And he scores a couple goals. That is a perfect microcosm for what I mean there. He can succeed on the right, he can succeed on the left. But you can't play him like a Savio. You can't play him like a Doku. In the same way that you wouldn't want to play Savio as Foden or Doku as Foden or any player like any other player. You've got to platform players to succeed. This isn't the same as, he's a luxury player or, he needs to have the perfect environment. It just needs to be the bare minimum environment. That's all it is. If you have a player like, let's say, Marmoush, and you play no balls through for him, and you don't allow him to use his transitional abilities, he's not going to contribute much. That is not him being a luxury player or a liability or a shit player or what some people term system player, again, that's another conversation for another day perhaps, that is just not doing the bare minimum of platforming and profiling that player correctly. That's all it is. That's all it is. So I'm going to hard disagree with that. He needs to... What's it? No, where's that comment gone? It's gone now. Fuck appendicitis? Yeah, brilliant. Oh, dear. Foden's versatility helped out City so much. Yes, absolutely. The likely scenario is Foden's not instructed to play risky passes, looking for runs in case it gets turned over and the opposition counters. We had no midfield defense when that happened. Well, here's one interesting anecdote. Now, I don't know how much I agree with that, but there is definitely something in that. Again, I don't necessarily agree with it because I've seen Foden do that a lot in the past, less so this season, but in general, I have seen it a lot. But the prime example, again, it was against Wolves. Foden plays a ridiculous ball over the top to Haaland. Haaland ends up putting it in the back of the net, and Pep shouting at him, like, what are you doing? Because it is a very low probability, high risk play. I do take that point. Not sure how much I absolutely agree with it, but I do take the point. That's also a great one, to be fair. Yeah, no one got more pre-assists than him last season, in fairness. Or third assists, either. It's a thing. What? I have no idea. I don't know if there's like a language barrier here, Alf, because I know you're not English, but this is just not a functional sentence from a definition perspective. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt there. Big up to you, Herbal. Tuchel trying to play Foden as a touchline winger hurt me. I did not watch the England game. If we solely build this England team around Jude, we don't win anything, says Bengal. We shall see. Guys, we've got over 100 people watching, but not even 100 likes. Let's get to 100 likes, please. Come on. I know you guys can do it. Get it up here. Get it up here. Yeah, so now that takes us into this season. No one has been particularly good this season, first and foremost. Let's get that straight. I think our best player, and I've said this many times, I think our best player this season has been Gvardiol. And he had a 1 to 2 month period where every other game he was making a mistake that led to a goal. I don't think that's an exaggeration either. It seemed every game or every other game, it was an error leading to a goal. And that's, for me, our best player this season, Gvardiol. Haaland, maybe. I still think Gvardiol's been more consistent. I do think he's been better. If you want to say Haaland, even he had a spell of a couple months where he was just... He was... People want to talk about City aren't creating enough for him. Through that period, we were creating a lot for Haaland, and he was really bad in front of goal. His pressing was being questioned, I think rightly so. Maybe there was a slight injury there, I'm not sure, but even he had a couple months where he was playing below par, and those are our best options. Those are our best options in terms of who's going to win Player of the Season. That should tell you. So the bar is on the floor in terms of, you know, what we expect from a usual Man City best player situation. How many of our players do you reckon get into the team of the year this year? Usually, I'd be advocating for about 5, 6 sometimes. I reckon maximum 1. Absolute maximum 1. And that's probably Gvardiol, isn't it? You can make an argument for Haaland, but I think it's probably going to be Isak, isn't it? I'd say that Gvardiol is really the only one who's got a very good shout at getting into the Premier League team of the season. If there's a name I'm forgetting, let me know. I'm pretty sure that's the only one I can really think of. Everyone else has either been just flat out bad, like Kyle Walker, or they have underperformed, or everyone else has underperformed to the level that we know they can perform. And that's what Foden is overall. There was a period when he came back into the side, so I can't remember exactly when he came back. Was it October through to December? He actually had some good performances. I think of the Southampton game. I think of the Brighton game. I think of the Bournemouth game. I think of the Sporting game before the capitulation. There were some very good performances, and there were, glimpses of the player of the season, Foden, whatever you want to say. I think the Bournemouth game was one of them. Sporting game before the capitulation was one of them. I'd even contend the Southampton game was one of those as well. He should have had 3 assists that day. Then the new year came, and in my opinion, the performances stayed the same, but goals started to be added. Everyone saying Foden's back, whatever. I didn't agree with that. I didn't think the performance level had necessarily increased. I just thought that he was now adding goals. Or rather, he was getting the ball into dangerous areas and he was scoring the goals. But yet, since, I don't know, since the last couple months, I'd say that's where there has been, I think, probably his worst performances of the season. I think that the best examples are the Liverpool games. The Anfield one, I've touched on before, how system was mental that day. And at home, whilst he actually got into good positions and he illustrated how intelligent he is in terms of playing the false 9, which is one of the most intellectually demanding positions out there, the first touch wasn't good enough, which was bizarre because I've never seen him have a badder game in terms of his first touch. At the Emirates as well, again, not platformed particularly well, didn't have a great game that day, obviously made an error, which led to a deflected effort. What, again, just on that, wasn't even the worst pass that day. It wasn't even as bad as De Bruyne's pass against Forest when we won 3-0. One of them was a Chris Wood miss. The other was a fluky, deflected effort that went in the back of the net. One is remembered, one is not remembered. That's just an important context as well. I would be concerned if he was playing as badly as people were trying to make out he has been playing, because people have been trying to make out that he's been playing at like a sort of 0 out of 10 or a 1 out of 10 across this whole season, which I just fundamentally disagree with. I don't think he's been playing well this season, obviously, across the entirety of it. I think that it's been mediocre. If you're ranking it out of 10, it would be like a 4 or a 5 out of 10. People are acting like it's a 0 or a 1 out of 10. They need to chill. They do need to calm down on that. It hasn't been as bad as people are trying to make out. In relative terms, it's been bad because we expect so much of Foden. This has been his worst season since, coming onto the scene, whatever terminology you want to use there. But it's not been anywhere near as bad as people are trying to make out. There have been a lot worse players at City this season. A lot, and there have been players who've actually been detrimental in terms of our performances consistently, and he is not one of those players. The reality is that the whole squad, the whole side, the whole team has been underperforming. We all know why. I'm not going to go into, again, why have we been underperforming. I did a video on it. Go watch Our Man City Broken. We know the issues at City. They are going to continue until reinforcements come in and injured players return. It's not been good enough for his high standards. I've been probably most disappointed with his shooting from outside the box. The worst, and now there have been a lot of games where he's been closed down a lot quicker. There have been games where he's just not been found on the edge of the box. But when he has been found, the shooting hasn't been quite there. It was good against Real Madrid at home. Courtois pulled out a really good save. But Liverpool at home was an example where it was bad in terms of outside the box shooting. And I don't think he scored a goal from outside the box this season. That's what I've been most disappointed with. Oh, is that actually LB? No, it's not. You're not modded. I think LB's modded. Is that a fake LB account then? Yeah, can someone please ban that fake account? Can a mod please ban that fake account? In fact, I might ban it. Sorry, fake LB. You're getting banned. Hide user on this channel. Bosh. There you go. uh, 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 uh. I knew there was something sus there. I was like, why is LB messaging me here instead of doing it on WhatsApp? Less of that. Less of that. Naveen, perhaps. Yes, to be fair, you are always here. Yeah, how weird. How bizarre. Anyway, that was a weird distraction. Foden's... Yeah, we were talking about just the season generally. So, again, it's not been good enough. Once again, I would like more. We would all like more. I'd like more from everyone, of course. All that being said, and this is where I'm going to go into the realm of the hyperbole that has existed this season, where again, you've got insane people saying that this is the worst season following a Player of the Year season ever. You got people saying that he's just having a 0 out of 10 season. You got people saying that we've talked about the revisionist history. Let's just focus on this season, though, for a moment. And again, this isn't me trying to provide an excuse. This is me just providing you guys with some information and some context and saying that it's not... If you think that Foden's had like a 0 or 1 out of 10 season or it's just been shit, you know, in a vacuum, I'm not talking about relative to his high standards. I do think it's been bad relative to his high standards. I'm just talking about generally and in a vacuum. It's been mid. Even so, in a bad season, here's some information for you. Shout out to Bailey Wynn on who I believe has a different name on YouTube. But he runs Sky Blue Times. I don't know where he got these numbers from. I believe it's from FBref, I believe. These are his numbers based on this season. A bad season for Foden's high standards in a bad City side. In terms of goals and assists, second, only behind Haaland. In terms of non-penalty expected goals, second highest. We talk about how there aren't enough goal scorers in the side, and there aren't enough players, taking shots, etc. Only Haaland's ahead of him there. The player who can't create is second for expected assists. The player who can't create is second for expected assists. The player who can't create is third for expected assisted goals. Let me know if you guys don't know the difference between the two. I can very briefly outline that. The player who can't create is first in key passes. First. The player who can't create or pose a threat in the final third is third for passes into the penalty area. First in shot creating actions. Second in goal creating actions. The player who can't create is first for key passes, second for expected assists. In a season where we've been desperate to score goals, he is second in terms of direct goal contributions. This is this season, Bengal. This is the 24-25 season. This isn't overall. This isn't overall. This is this season. Sorry if I didn't specify that. This is for the 24-25 season. But that is apparently a 1 out of 10 season. Now, is it good enough? No. But we're not going to go overboard, and we're not going to lean into hyperbole or reactivism. It's not happening. Not on this channel, anyway. Those stats, that data, just totally blows these odd arguments out of the water. City only or league. I don't know what that means. You mean, what, relative to other players? Oh, for City, yeah. There's no City player who's top in the goal scoring charts or any stat this season. That's the point. That's the point. There's another one that I'd like to raise. Yeah, there's another one I'd like to raise. This is a stat from me. Let's just right now debunk this idea that Foden does not create opportunities for Haaland. So this is... I mean, first of all, I could tell that was just incorrect by using my eyes, but this is empirical evidence and data, so this is something that is objective and we can't even argue against. Over the past year, comparing Foden to the best passing creator, Kevin De Bruyne. I'd expect De Bruyne to blow Foden's numbers out of the charts in terms of creating for Erling Haaland. Everyone keeps saying, well, not everyone, but lots of people, lots of misguided people, say he can't create for Haaland. He can only create for himself. Again, that narrative has never existed before 2024. Never seen that. Foden to Haaland, 21 shot assists. KDB to Haaland, 21 shot assists. Foden to Haaland, 4.33 expected assists. KDB to Haaland, 4.57 expected assists. That's a player who can't create full stop. That's a player who can't create for Haaland. That's objectively incorrect, guys. There's no... it's not even an argument to be had, because the argument is dead on arrival. You may as well say that, you know, ghosts exist, or that 2 add 2 is 5. It's just wrong. So I just want to put that information out there as well. I watched the game as well. This is how analysis works. You'd understand that if you worked in the space. You watch the matches. You think you have an idea of your conclusion. I reach that conclusion. I then go to the data to see if it supports my conclusion. Lo and behold, it does. Lo and behold, it does. YK, no one's arguing that. And no point in the show, in fact, please timestamp it, find me the point where I said that Foden is a high-volume passing creator. Please tell me the point in the show where I said that, and I'll be happy to be proven wrong. I want that. I want your next comment to be that, please. Thank you. That is the point. In a bad season, for his standards, in an off season for City, in a mediocre season, in a vacuum, he's still putting up these impressive numbers for this underperforming City side. So people need to calm down a bit in terms of going overboard. This is not the same as you can't criticize him. This is not the same as saying he hasn't been good enough this season, because I don't think he has been good enough this season. I think he does deserve criticism this season. I have criticized him this season a lot, by the way. If you watch my postmortems, then you'd know that. In particular, I was not happy with the game at Anfield. I was not happy with the other Liverpool game, certainly in respect of his first touch. I was not happy in respect of the Real Madrid game away. If you watch my shows consistently enough, you'd know this. Yeah, so hopefully that's dispelled and that all of that stuff. So if you ever see anyone say he's just not a creator, you don't even have to go back and look at previous seasons where the creation numbers are even better. You can just literally look at this season and go, right, well, he's second in terms of the pure creation numbers this season for City. So, not sure what that tells you. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with fair, reasonable, just criticism. There is something wrong with revisionism. There is something wrong with reactivism. There is something wrong with, on the back of a mediocre season, saying he's not good enough. We should sell him. He's this player, not that player. He's never been that player. He's never contributed to anything the City have won outside of last season. Those are lies. That's not even something you can argue against. That's not even an untruth. That is a lie. That is a lie. Herbal raised the point I was going to touch on earlier. Again, the hyperbole from this season has been insane. He's the worst player of the season winner. Sorry, it's the worst downfall from a player of the season ever. I know people don't like... I know LB in particular doesn't like to touch on it. Mahrez's season following his Player of the Year win was a lot worse than what Foden's doing now. And if you don't even want to talk about that, Eden Hazard's year in 15-16 was a lot worse. A lot worse. At one point, Chelsea were, I can't actually remember what position they finished last season, but I think when Mourinho got sacked, they were like 12th or something insane. Maybe, what was it, 14th? It was ridiculous. And Hazard was shocking that season. Did that detract from everything that he had done up until that point? No, it didn't. I don't think people look at, Hazard as a player and go, oh, well, he was bad that season, therefore he's not a good player. You're just ignoring the catalogue of work that's come before it, which is very, very odd. YK. So is Foden, apparently. It doesn't change the reality that it was still the worst season following a Player of the Year win that I can think of anyway. Maybe there is another one I can't recall off the top of my head. Certainly off the top of my head, that is the most obvious one. Whether there's context is irrelevant, that is the reality. And people want to talk about hyperbole. Still waiting, by the way, YK. Still waiting for my previous comment. So we're not going to entertain these lies. On this channel, anyway. It's not going to happen. This is not a safe place. This channel is not a safe space or a safe place for people to lie or to slander. Slander's not the right term. To libel. If you think it's a safe place, you are in for a shock. You're in for a shock awakening. It's not happening over here. We call it out on this channel. We call it out for what it is. It's bollocks. None of that changes the fact that this season, from his perspective, has not been good enough, of course. None of that changes the fact that he deserves criticism. Of course he does. But people are just being so dishonest this season. Again, I'll repeat. Lying about what he has done this season. Lying about what he did previously. Lying about what he is as a player. There have been performances this season. Here's the best example that I can think of, maybe. Actually, no. I think maybe there are two good examples here. Bournemouth away. That was, for me, his best performance this season. He was wonderful that day. Against a tough Bournemouth side, he should have had 2 assists that day. The playmaking that day was wonderful. It was brilliant that day. For a player, especially for a player who can't create. He created a hell of a lot for Haaland that day. Good lord. No idea how he didn't get 2 assists that day. But the other one is this. And now, I don't know if this was consensus or, anything wider than this isolated comment. But I think it is, again, it's demonstrative of the point I'm trying to make here. Feyenoord game. 3-0 up. Foden goes off. Substituted. Had a good game. Next 15 to 20 minutes, I think it's 15 minutes after those subs. I'm not saying it's caused by the subs, by the way. I'm just saying this is the sequence of events. 15 minutes after that sub is made, City capitulate from 3-0 to 3-all in the space of 10-15 minutes. And we actually could have lost that game as well. Someone, I can't remember who it was. Maybe they're like, I don't know, maybe a mod muted them because of how mental this statement was. But again, this is just a perfect example of what I'm trying to say. Someone left a comment after that full-time whistle saying, that's Foden's fault. And this is a City fan. I was just flabbergasted. I was flabbergasted. With 3-0 up, he's gone off the pitch. There are 15 minutes left. We capitulate. And you're saying that an attacking player who got substituted is the reason why we didn't win the game when we're 3-0 up? That is what I'm talking about. This is the level of insanity that I've had to deal with this season. That is just one example of however many. That's the best example I can think of. But it happens over and over and over again. It's very odd. It's very odd that this is coming from City fans. It's really weird. Really weird. Because there was just no semblance of logic in that. Bengal says, I remember it. I have no idea who it was. If you're watching this, I'm sure it was a City fan as well. If you were watching this, and seek shame immediately. Seek shame. I can't believe that. That's just one example of many. And that's sort of what I'm getting at. There's been a... I understand we haven't been good this season as a unit. I understand that people are upset and concerned. but you don't have to be so heavily reactive and go so heavily to blaming areas of the pitch where it just shouldn't matter. We've touched on it many times on this channel. The attack this season has been good enough to compete for the title. Maybe it's not been good enough to win. It's certainly not been good enough relative to City's high standards, but it has objectively been good enough to compete for the title, or at least finish second. The defence has not. We know that. Our defence this season, from a goals conceding perspective, has been mid. It's been the definition of mid-table. I think it might be the 8th best in the league. Can't recall exactly. Whereas our goal scoring has been second most. Second best, yeah? So people need to target their frustrations to better areas. Again, this isn't the same as saying you can't criticise. But let's not revise history. This other weird idea. We've touched on the fact that he apparently can't create. Once again, people get it twisted. Being able to create as a footballer is not a dichotomous term. That is not a term which means one thing and one thing only. Yeah? It's not this thing where it's either this or it's that. This is not binary. This is not a dichotomy. It should be used as a very nuanced term with different offshoots coming off it. You can create by dribbling, and you can create by holding up play. You can create by being an aerial threat. You can create from set play. You can create via the pass from open play. This last one is what people are deciding that's what creativity means. It's not true. It's not correct. I've never once said that Foden is a high volume passing pass first player, because he's not that. And he'll never be that. That's not an issue. That's not a problem at all. That's what De Bruyne is. De Bruyne is a pass first, high volume passing player. That's what De Bruyne is. But you can create through multiple different avenues. Jeremy Doku creates a lot from his dribbling. Savio likewise, dribbling. Haaland creates a lot through his hold-up play. Laporte used to create a lot from his diagonal switches. And Gavardio's doing a bit of that as well. There's a difference, and this is why it's it's just objectively incorrect to say that Foden can't create. Saying Foden can create is not the same as saying Foden is a high-volume pass-first player, because that's never been said by anyone, I don't think. Certainly not on this channel, certainly not by me. So if you say that, then that's odd, and you can still be a creative player and not be a high-volume pass-first player. Again, this is not binary. This is not black and white. This is not a dichotomy. I can't believe I'm actually having to explain that, but here we are. Here we are. Thank you so much to Jordan for your super chat, matey. Supporting the channel. Shout out, man. Yes, Nobbins. Hope you're all right. Thank you. Been saying Hazard's 15-16 was worse, but then I remember some critics weren't even born then, says Jordan. That's a good point. Maybe that's what it is in fairness. Maybe there is an age situation happening here where people didn't watch that season, or maybe they've forgotten. I don't know. To be fair, that was the season where Leicester won the title. So that's obviously the main storyline from that year. Why would you be focusing on, Chelsea underperforming? Here's your fortune, Jordan. You can open doors with your charm and patience. Well, I don't have a lot of that when it comes to this topic, but thank you, Jordan, so much for your super chat. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Yeah, so that is that's a myth to bust. Another myth to bust. Once again, I just really don't know where this one has come from. By the way, if you guys have got any questions for me, please let me know. I appreciate I've been talking a lot today, but it is supposed to be an interactive show. Do let me know if you got any thoughts. I still want my 100 likes, guys. Come on, get it up here. Get it up here. Another myth. Again, I've no idea where this has come from, because there are literally compilations which are like minutes long where you can just watch these and be disproven objectively. This idea that Foden is not a quote big game player. I've no idea where this is coming from. Once again, I would love to know what is, even if we're just talking about outright GA, whatever. I would love to know his data and numbers in those games. Okay, so he's not a big game player, right? Okay. Last game of the season, we can even say even he's not been good this season. Real Madrid at home, came on, played well, won us the penalty. Hasn't been good, in fairness, in the majority of big games this year. Home against Chelsea was good, in fairness. But we all know this season's not been good enough. So how about his catalogue? How about his catalogue of games? Well, last season, ridiculous goal at the Bernabeu to put us into the lead. I believe that was to put us into the lead. Or was it to equalise? No, it was to equalise, wasn't it? We were 2-1 down. Someone, please, bail us out here. We need a miracle. Oh, there it is. Last day of the season. Who was it that scored those goals to win us the title on the last day of the season? When in a must-win game? Can't quite remember. If someone in the chat can let me know, that'd be great. Probably the hardest game in that run-in. Spurs away. Who was it that created both goals? I've forgotten. Maybe you guys can remind me of that. Who was it that scored a brace against Manchester United when we were 1-0 down in a must-win game? Maybe you guys can remind me. We can go back even further than that. Who was it that won Man of the Match in that 2020 Cup final? Maybe you guys can remind me. Who was it that scored the only goal of the game against Spurs in that must-win game in 2019? Maybe you guys can remind me of that. Who was it that scored those goals and put in that ridiculous performance against Dortmund and PSG in the season where we got to our first ever Champions League final? Maybe you guys can help me out on that one as well. Who was it that scored the only goal in that quote hand of Rod game where we won 1-0, must-win game to overcome Liverpool? Maybe you guys can remind me of that. Who was it that scored the equaliser at Anfield? And who was it? I didn't say Leipzig, I said Dortmund. Who was it? Maybe use your ears. Who was it that scored the equaliser at Anfield in the 21-22 season? And who was it that also should have got James Milner sent off / should have won as a penalty? Maybe you guys can help me out with that one as well. Who was it that got the assist against Atletico Madrid, the only goal of the tie in the dying embers of the game at the Etihad? Maybe you guys can remind me of that as well. I could go on. There are so many of these big moments where Foden has scored or assisted or has put in a fantastic performance. Those are just some of them. Please, please, please debunk all of those games right now if you don't think that Foden's ever turned up in big games for City. Please debunk them all, because I went as far back as 2019. I've gone from 2019 through to 2024, and I've been able to identify massive defining moments, which essential contributions where without them we do not win those trophies or do not make milestones, such as reaching our first Champions League final. I know it was the third goal of the match. He even scored in the Club World Cup final. You can say the game was done by then. We were 2-0 up. It still absolutely assures us of the victory. It's still a big platform to score a goal in. There are many, 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 many more examples. I would love someone to please debunk all of those games. Please let me know. Please let me know. Another one, actually. Was it the... Oh, what season was it? It was the season before the treble-winning year, I believe. Didn't he score against Real Madrid in the semi-final? I think he did. I might be wrong. I'm not wrong. That's me being cheeky. I'm pretty sure he did. Oh, no, wait. Yes, he did. Odd. Yeah, Rodrigo, you are a nutter, and let me tell you why, mate. The argument is not that he performs in every single big game to have ever existed, my son. because no player in football history has turned up in every single big game of their career, because that would be an insane thing to have happened. And so I actually don't know what to say other than, like, you must be challenged. Because that's nearly as bad as blaming Foden for the 3-0 capitulation to Feyenoord when he wasn't even on the pitch. It's nearly as bad as that. Yeah, I'd check yourself, mate. So there we go. Hopefully that also dispels the idea that he doesn't turn up in big games, because I've given you... I think I might have given you double-digit big games there. Can't recall exactly. Can't recall exactly. But it was there or thereabouts, wasn't it? Even the Champions League final. Comes on, plays very well. Should have got a goal. Very unfortunate. Really good movement. Wins us. Which helps create the space for the ultimate winner. Not saying that he created that goal, but the movement is very good. There we go. And there we go. Yeah, sorry, Rodrigo, you've lost your replying rights now. You're just going to get ignored now, I'm afraid. Because I can't be bothered with you. You've lost your replying rights. So you're going to have to hold that. There's only so many, there's only so many idiotic comments I can reply to in an hour show. Hopefully that's debunked that myth as well. Again, no idea where that's come from. No idea, bizarre. Wasn't there some mental stat that Henry's never scored in a cup final or something? Oh, therefore I guess he was a shit footballer. No. That's a really stupid thing to say. You know, De Bruyne did not perform in either Champions League finals. There was injuries in the first one. Does that mean that his legacy is tainted? No, because even in the treble-winning year where he got injured and after like 15 or so minutes, he was vital in terms of getting us there. Even like 2021. Again, very important in terms of getting us there. You don't boil down a player's career to individual games like that as a microcosm. You look at the wider context. It's very odd. Is there anything else that we need to talk about here? Yeah, this is, and as someone who studied history, by the way, you know, only at A level, but still, I'm a big history nerd. It's very scary when people are revising history in general. It's not as scary in football because the stakes are a lot lower, but within our own little space in the world, in the universe, on the internet, it is very worrying when people who don't know any better or don't know anything revise history. It's very concerning because if enough people say it, then enough people will believe it and they will accept it as fact. And that is a concern. And that is a concern. We're not going to stand for that on this channel. I'll say it again. This is not a safe place or a safe space for idiots. This is an area where if you say something stupid, you will get challenged and you will get called out on it. Rightly so. We like to actually have reasoned discussion here. I like to think anyway. I try to be as objective as I can. I think today I've been quite objective and calm. But there we go. Let's, in sum, because I have spoken a lot here, my sort of conclusion is, if this happens, because again, no player is exempt from just criticism. If Foden, next season, the season after, whatever, continues to decline, then there is a serious problem. And then there will be a problem. In terms of Foden, then there will be a Foden problem. Of course there will be. But I reckon that given the catalogue of his contributions in the City shirt, someone said it earlier, I will get the data. Shall we find out what the exact number is in terms of his contributions to City? 1 second, guys. I should have had this information at hand, shouldn't I? Right. I want to take out his academy goals though. Right. 1, 7, 21. Guys, what's 118 take away 21? 97. Remember that number, guys. 97. 97 and 57. In fact, 97 and 57. 97 goals for Manchester City. 57 assists for Manchester City in his senior career. This is not a player that you give up on after one mediocre season. This is not a player who you refuse to defend and treat as a new signing who you spent 150 million quid on. Yeah? This is a player who should rightly have, and does rightly, have a lot of credit in the bank and is allowed at least one mediocre season following a season in which he won us the title and was the best player in the country. That's who we're talking about here. We haven't even had to talk about, the fact that he's an academy player and he's a City fan himself and he bleeds blue, etc., loves the club, been here since 4. We don't even need to talk about any of that. If this was Jeremy Doku, if this was, and I have talked about Haaland like this as well, because some people have said we should sell Haaland as well. If this was any player who had given us what he has given us and is saying that, oh, sell him, not good enough, then I would be defending them just as much if they were receiving the ridiculous amount of libel that has been received this season. Not criticism, because criticism is just, but there has been libel this season, and it has been insane. I'll repeat those numbers. 97 goals and 57 assists. This is not a player who's had one good season for City. This is not a player who can't create direct goals for others. This is not a one-trick pony. This is not a player who you give up on. This is a player who since 2020 has got double-digit goals, for example. It's a player who has got double-digit assists every season outside of the one where he had his appendix removed. And we'll see what happens this season. Annoyingly, he should have double-digit assists. Sadly, teammates haven't been firing. That's who we're talking about. This is a player who I didn't even realise his appearance numbers were this high. He's made at least 30 appearances since 2019. 38, 50, 45, 48, 53, 38. This is not a bit part player or a bench player either. Like, let's have some perspective. And let's have some patience. And let's have some humility as well, please. Some intelligence and some critical thinking. I'd like to think that he's earned that, in my opinion. Let's not make up lies. Let's not say he's not an intelligent player. Let's not say he's a one-trick pony. Let's not say he's not good enough. Let's not say he should be sold. Let's criticise this season, which hasn't been good enough for his high standards. Let's criticise this season, where in a vacuum it's been mediocre. But let's still accept and appreciate the context of how everyone's been bad this season, about how the numbers are still quite impressive for a bad side. Respect. Respect. As Jose once said. Right, let me get into some comments. Again, this has been a bit of a rant stream. I apologise. Actually, I don't apologise. I feel like it's been quite entertaining. For Foden, Wirtz midfield to work, Wirtz would need to be the high-volume passer. Otherwise, Rodri would have too much responsibility on him. Here's the thing, Sean. I'm not even convinced that Wirtz is that player. I can't lie to you. I know that, LB, for example, is so excited at the prospect of him. I know that lots of City fans are. I just don't know if I'm convinced that he actually is the player that people think he is. That's not to say that he's a bad player, but I think that people will be disappointed with what they get, in respect of what they expect. Ronaldo did nothing in the Euros final. It's just a silly argument, isn't it? Like, it's just a mad thing to say. Oh no, he didn't turn up in this game, but a big game isn't just a cup final. And also, he played well in the most recent Champions League final. So, yeah, weird. Revision is a big problem. I agree, says Itchy Goat. I I've touched on Doku a lot this season. I've defended Doku a lot this season. And he's got a lot less credit in the bank than someone like a Foden, but I'll still be defending him because he's a wonderful player. Ignorant people are my least favourite type, yeah. Don't you worry, Dave, you're safe, mate. I'll give you a pass. Exactly, Blue Moon. And this is why it annoys me when people. I think it was a Sheikh on Twitter who he did a comment, he did a post saying, we should be backing Foden and something like that. And then lots of people saying, oh, he deserves criticism. No one's saying he doesn't, but these people don't. I think these people don't like the fact that they're now being outed more so over the past few days and the past few weeks maybe, and they're sort of backtracking and realize and going, oh, what, freedom of speech? I can't criticize. No, of course you can. No one's saying you can't, but you're not just criticizing. You are like slandering and you are lying. There's a big difference between the two. And again, Blue Moon, totally agree. Every player this season, this manager deserves criticism this season. No one is safe. Our best player this season, whether you think it's Gvardiol or Haaland, both deserve criticism. For City's very high standards, it's not been good enough. No one's saying he can't criticise. I've criticised Foden a lot this season. But I've also defended him where people are criticising him when it's not justified or when it's overboard. Big up to you, Patrick. If you're still here, mate, let me know what the situation is, re your surgery. Yeah, I think you raised enough money. Shout out to everyone who supported in that. Yeah, absolute shout out to that. Hopefully you're all okay, matey. I totally agree with your comment as well, by the way. Totally agree with your comment as well. He's not been... People are acting like it's a 1 out of 10. Yeah, people like to be hyperbolic. People love to hate, as it turns out. 97 goals, 15 assists, Foden's the present and future. Yeah, savage hate. Yeah, it's bizarre, Dave. And again, I'd expect this and anticipate it and not allow it, but I could understand it from, Arsenal fans in particular. Because if you're an Arsenal fan, why would you like Foden? He's the reason why you lost the title last season. It makes total sense for you to not like Foden. It makes sense for you to start vicious rumours and lies about what sort of player he is. But you can accept that if your own fan base are all on the same page and are making sense. The unfortunate situation is that a lot of people in our fan base are very easily misled by this, what I'm going to call a pigeon analysis. Yeah? Pigeon analysis, that's what it is. They just accept it, they lap it up. They love it, and I don't quite get why. This idea that I think that Blue Lock just said it there. This idea that he's a second striker, again, never seen that before. Never seen that before 2024. This idea that he's a turn and shoot player, never seen that before 2024. This idea that he can't create for others, never seen that before 2024. This idea that he can't create, never seen that before 2024. Bizarre. Really weird. Baena, I do like the concept of Baena. Verts is a ball carrier. Athletic did a good video on it, says Trey. Shout out to the Athletic. Haven't seen that video, but I do like the Athletic. Used to watch them a lot back in the day. I've got far less time to watch football content, sadly. In fact, I don't really watch any, can't lie. Apart from the actual matches, obviously. That's the thing. Sadly, Trey, it's not. It actually happened. It sometimes happens at the Etihad as well. It's also not just. It's mainly online fans. I will say that much, but it's not just that. It's even happened at the Etihad. Like, I've heard people behind me. In fact, someone's hate for Foden was so much that McAtee made an error, gave it away, and then this person said, "Oh, that's shit, Foden," and then the person next to them had to go, "That was McAtee, mate." But then again, I'm sat next to someone at the Etihad, or sat near someone at the Etihad, who in Sterling's prime, when he was putting up numbers that only Messi was surpassing, he was saying how he was shit and not good enough. So that's the level that I'm working with. Do I think Echeverri should go on loan, says Itchy Goat. If it was this season, I'd say yeah. Because I don't think that he should be starting in the league this season, to be honest with you. I I think that, I know this is not a popular thing to say. I think that he's, and I'm doing some script writing today on the Echeverry video. I think that he's become quite overrated by City fans, and I think that people are going to be a bit disappointed, or they would be disappointed if he started, let's say, on Sunday and at times this season. That's not to say he's a bad player, but I do feel like people are sort of putting all their eggs in the Echeverry basket, and I'd be very cautious of that. He's a good player. I think he will become, and could become, a world-class player. But right now, it's too early for him to be starting week in, week out. I want him to get some minutes on the bench. So I'd like to see him get some minutes, coming off the bench, of course. But he's not going to get as much game time as people were hoping for this season. Next season, I'd like to see him integrated more. But I wouldn't like to see him go on loan next season. I would like to see him stay with the squad. I'd like to see De Bruyne extend maybe for a year, learn from him. But this is the reality. I know Argentina are world champions, and they're a very, very good side, obviously. Echeverry's not even made a single Argentina senior squad. He's not even. I'm not saying he should start and get minutes. He's not even made the squad. He made like the initial one this time round, but didn't make the cut. This isn't me having a go at him, but this is the level that we're talking about. He's not a saviour for City. He's a 19-year-old with a season of experience at senior level. He's got fantastic experience at youth level, of course. And that's not to say that what you do at youth level won't translate to the senior game, because you don't. If you're a very good passer at the youth level, you don't just lose that, do you? You don't just lose that overnight. But he's not better than any of our current options. Even he's not better than McAtee right now. I don't think. I think the fact that he's not even made the bench tells you that Pep considers that to be the case as well. He's not made it over McAtee in respect to the pecking order yet. And I don't know if he will make it in respect to the remainder of this season. When Bob comes back, he's not going to play over Bob if Bob's given any central time this season. So we just need to be wary. And by the way, that's not slander. That's me just saying we can't be placing unfair and unrealistic expectations on this guy. It's not fair on him, and it will just lead to a lot of disappointment. And I fear that if we big him up too much, then he will get similar treatment to the players that we've had this season. People questioning Gvardiol, saying he's not good enough for City. Foden, not good enough. Haaland, not good enough. Savio, Doku, not good enough, etc. I'm concerned that a similar thing will happen to Echeverry if he's rushed. And we can't, and by the way, I think I saw this on We Are the South Stand last night when I was on the show. I think I saw it in the chat. Lamine Yamal is not the standard setter. He is not the bar. Yamal was the greatest 16-year-old football has ever seen. He's maybe the best 17-year-old the sport has ever seen. You can't say, well, because my point is that Echeverry's 19, give him time. People saying, well, Yamal was 17, and he was, winning Spain matches at the Euros when he was 16. Yamal cannot be the standard setter. He is the best 16-year-old ever in football. He was better than Messi at 16 years old. Now, whether he'll develop into the same level as Messi is another conversation. But Messi was not making Argentina squads at 16 years old. He was not starting week in, week out for Barcelona senior side at 16 years old. Yamal was. That's the level we're talking about. Big difference here. So you can't say, oh, Echeverry, he should be starting because Yamal starts. It's like comparing an apple with a shit. That's a terrible example. It's like comparing an apple with an orange. I don't know why I said shit, because that makes it sound like I'm having a go. No, that's not what I'm trying to say. You're comparing an apple to a camera. That's what it is. two totally separate things that have no correlation between one another. They are not comparable. It's not a thing. That's a better example. Yamal's generational. Exactly. Exactly, Lily. Spot on. Saying that a player is shit that's a nothing thing to say, isn't it? It's a nothing thing to say. It's also just descriptive and not explanatory or analytical. It's not. Oh, sorry. I apologize. It's not surgery. It's treatments. Either I'll do intense radiation, which is cyber enough if I'm accepted, or we'll do more advanced chemo. All this depends on being accepted. Okay. Well, hopefully you get accepted. Hopefully the money raised will help with that, Patrick. Big up to you, mate. Sending you my well wishes. There will be one on bar at some point. Yes, there will be. It's a thing. Support merit, not mediocrity. Foden has so much merit that we can afford him more than one pass. Exactly, Quinton. In England, it just hasn't worked out. Sometimes things just don't work out. I'd even say, just going back to Foden for a moment, even on the national stage, even for me, that's been overblown and blown out of proportion. Foden was good in the 2021 Euros. He was good. And we actually missed him in the final. He was injured, sadly. He was good that campaign when he played. The next one was the World Cup in 2022. Again, had a good tournament. The most recent one that happened had a mid-tournament. But again, people are acting like it was a 1 out of 10. Some people even say he's like the reason why England didn't win. I have no idea how a team sport is reduced to one player who actually, in England's best games, Switzerland and the Netherlands, he was actually our best player that day. Is that a coincidence? I'm not so sure. But there we go. Even if we accept that he was shit for England and has always been shit, which I don't accept, name me the tournament Steven Gerrard was great at. Foden's already had a better tournament than Gerrard. Ditto Lampard. Vinicius Jr. for Brazil does not play well, according to Brazilian fans. They're very upset with how he plays. I have no idea why people are so fixated on the national stage when, first of all, sometimes it's actually been quite good. Secondly, it's not been as bad as people say. And thirdly, the idea that this is the only time it's ever happened. Yeah. Again, name me the great tournament Gerrard had. Was it at Euro 2000 when he... Sorry, was it at... because he won that World Cup 2002. Was it at Euro 2004 when he literally passed the ball to Thierry Henry, which led to a penalty, which led us to finishing second in the group? Was it at World Cup 2006 where our best midfielder was Owen Hargreaves and Gerrard was shocking? Was it Euro 2008? That's it. He was wonderful at Euro 2008, wasn't he? Yeah, no, he was player of the tournament at Euro... Oh, no, wait, no, we didn't qualify for Euro 2008. But apparently this is the first time it's happened, and it hasn't even happened to that level. That was just a little aside. Sorry, I know we were talking about Echeverry. Nah, yeah. No, that's not going to happen. I like Echeverry as a player. I'm just trying to bring our expectations to more realistic levels. I think Echeverry could go on to become one of the best players in the world. I truly think that. But the emphasis is on could. There is no guarantee here, and he's certainly not that player now. Certainly not that player now. It's just like generational. He's just one of those players. He's just got everything from a physicality perspective and from a technical quality perspective. He's just got everything. It's just a perfect package. He's going to win multiple Ballon d'Ors. That's the sort of player we're talking about with Yamal. That is the only concern, isn't it, Jack? Exactly, Pearl. Exactly, Naveen. How are you feeling for the FA Cup? Terrified. I don't think we'll win. on Sunday. I won't lie to you. I don't think we beat Bournemouth. If we had a full squad, I'd be a bit more confident. But we don't have any fullbacks. The best back four we could put out is Nunes, Kusanov, Diaz, Nico, O'Reilly. And I don't think we're going to put that back four out. And even with that best back four, that concerns me as well. I just struggle to see how we win. I don't know. We need Bournemouth to not play well. Get Jared Bowen on the right. He's good to go and produce crosses. I don't think Bowens should be starting for England, to be honest. What's Foden's best position if Wirtz comes in? Here's my thoughts, because I think LB asked me this on an LNobbins as well. If you ask me, if you want to say, like, right, just try to be as totally objective as possible, based on his skill set, based on his attributes, based on what we've seen of him in a City shirt, based on what you think his absolute ceiling is, what do I think Foden is? What do I think his best position is ultimately? The good news is that he's got a number of positions he can play. The answer, I will accept any answer in the centre, basically. You know, as long as you don't say striker, I'll accept any answer in the centre. Whether that's, you know, whether it's on the left, the right, the centre of centre, whatever. A hybrid 8-10, I don't care. It's somewhere there. I don't really care thereafter. But in terms of the ultimate ceiling, and in answering this question, I truly believe that Foden's best ceiling position is as an 8. And basically what Pedri does for Barcelona. That is what I think Foden's absolute ceiling is. Why do I think that? It's the ability to receive it in dangerous areas. It is the ability to retain possession when receiving it in those areas. It is the underrated metronomic quality to some of his passes. It is the, despite what people say, the understanding of the players ahead of him and the switches that he's able to do and the breaking line passes he's able to do. That, to me, is his best ceiling position. I don't know, because I'm not privy to these conversations, but my prediction at the end of last season was that this season was going to be that next step. And that Pep was going to turn him into that. Why do I think that? Because I think it happened because there is no doubt for me that in possession, he can do that. I touched on this in my Foden De Bruyne video. The key issue is out of possession. Because Foden is 5'7" and not physically imposing at all, obviously. You don't need to be, you know, massively physically imposing to be an 8. You know, Thiago Alcantara wasn't exactly this behemoth of a bulky boy. But you know what I mean, he is still frail. What makes me think that, though, is that in two of our most important games last season, which were Real Madrid at home and West Ham at home on the last day of the season, Foden played as an 8 in both of those games, in and out of possession, by the way. The out of possession one is the more interesting one. He partnered Rodri in the pivot in both of those matches. Now, that led me to believe that why would you do that on the, first of all, in a crucial game against Real Madrid, of all teams, when they got the likes of Tchouameni, Camavinga, Bellingham in the midfield? And then, why would you do that on the last day of the season in a must-win game against West Ham at home? Why would you do that? My conclusion at the time was maybe this is the long-term vision. I certainly think that. Pep said that, I think, back in 2020. He sees Foden more as a holding player, by which he didn't mean as a 6. He meant more as an 8. I think again, I don't know. I think the Rodri injury destroyed all hope of that happening, basically. Because now that Rodri's gone, you can't afford to experiment with doing that, can you? I would love to see next season a midfield 4 of Rodri at the base, Nico probably as right centre midfielder. Foden as that left centre midfielder. And then if you're saying Wirtz, then Wirtz as that on the tip of the diamond, basically. Think of it as a 3-4-3 diamond. Rodri at the base, Wirtz-like player at the tip, whoever. Echeverry, if you want to say. And then Nico / this other 6'8 signing, like, again, maybe a Belabor. And then Foden there. That would be my dream. And that's just in possession. Out of possession, you can actually pop him on the left. My long-term dream would be him to be just to do what Pedri is doing at Barca. I think that is his ceiling. Long-winded answer to your question, but that's my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think. I'm going to wrap it up soon because I have been live for 90 minutes. Thank you so much for joining me just on a random Wednesday afternoon. I do need to do these on... I do need to get back to doing these on Tuesday afternoons because that's a normal time slot. I was just a bit busy yesterday. Apologies. Onto your eyes. It's just a birthmark. Foden, Wirtz, Cambiasso, Rodri, box midfield, says Lakshmi. That might be fun. I want him in the centre. He got both his hat-tricks last season in the centre last season. Yeah, and it's not new information. It doesn't really matter where he is. As long as he's in the centre, I don't really care. It's a thing. Couldn't care less about mental health yet. Says everything I need to know about you as a person, Benny. Well done. It's a hard one because it's not as simple as just put muscle on, because then you lose a bit of your low center of gravity as much, and you lose a bit of your natural movement. So it's a hard one. It's not as simple as just put on a load of muscle, because then you might lose your speed, your agility. Foden as an 8 floating pivot role and late runs in the box. Yeah, I'd love that, Sarthak. Why would he go to a mid-table side? Very confused. Based on precedent. How do we set up out of possession? You could quite easily, you could very easily set up out of possession there. So Gavardi will push up to the left, and then Gavardi goes to left back, Foden to left midfield, or striker, whichever you prefer. Then Echeverry reverse striker or the left, probably striker for Echeverry, and then midfield duo of Rodri, Nico, Savio on the right. Back four is as is. You could very easily set up out of possession like that. That would be a nice midfield. I'd like to see that. I'd also more, as I say, long term, like to just see straight up him what happened against West Ham. That West Ham front five was Doku. This is against West Ham on the last day of the season. Doku, Foden, Haaland, De Bruyne, and Bernardo. Sorry, just replace Savio with replace Bernardo with Savio. And let's say De Bruyne with an Echeverry or Marmoush, whoever. I don't care. Why can't we set up the exact same way? I don't see why we can't. And then you have Gavardio doing what he did, pushing into midfield that day. That's another option because Gavardio's so good. The good news is there are options. There are options. Both would work. Both would work. Guys, yeah, big up to you, Andrew. I'm going to... Yeah, that's absolutely insane. Like, Benny's just a horrible person. I stopped reading after he said, I don't care about mental health. I was like, right, okay, well, you can actually never be on this channel ever again then, matey. I've been speaking for 90 minutes. People keep complaining about how my streams are too long. So I feel like I'm going to wrap it up there. I promise, guys, I promise. I know last week and the week before that was a bust. I've made no progress on the Echeverry video. I have made a lot of progress on the video this week. It's hopefully going to be out this week. But I promise you, I'm not just slacking and doing nothing all day. I promise I am working on it, and I will be doing more work on it after this show ends, which will be momentarily. Please get your final thoughts, final comments in. In fact, I think I've just spotted LB is going live shortly, so I'll be redirecting to him. So make sure you don't go anywhere. Because I'll be redirecting to him. Do we have any final thoughts? Final comments? We did get over 100 likes in the end. Thank you guys so much for that. I didn't hate on Echeverry, Andrew, but I did... I did have some reservations. Let's just say that. Thank you so much, Lily. Stats. Pedro's only 3 more chances of creating the Foden this season. Well, again, I'll go back to this data from earlier. You can't name a City player who's created more chances than Foden this season. You can't name them. The only one player's got more expected assists. What was that number on expected assists per 90? Bournemouth score prediction. Oh, God. Honestly, I'm just going to try to... Okay, I'm going to first of all predict what I think our team will be. And then from there, I'm going to tell you what I think the team will be. There we go. He's actually ahead of... By the way, apparently, according to some people, you know, absolute heir to Kevin De Bruyne, Cole Palmer. This isn't me having a go. I'm just saying. Ari expected assist per 90 if Foden's higher. He's in the top 10. Trent's higher than him. Savio, who has been great in that respect, is higher than him. Top of that list is Saka, who's obviously not played in a while, so that's why he's so high on that list. It's a bit of a warped stat. Weird. Yeah, so the Bournemouth game, we'll wrap it up here. I don't even know if Ortega's fit. Apparently, Gavardio's not fit. I don't think we have any fullbacks. I think he'll play Rico. Actually, I don't know if he'll trust Nico. I think he'll probably be Rico left back. Diaz, Kusanov centre back. Nunes right back. Nico. Gundogan. Savio. Doku, Marmoush, Haaland. That's my prediction for the team. I think we lose 2-0. To be honest with you. I think we lose 2-0. I don't want to say that. I don't think we win. I do think if we do win, we win the whole FA Cup, because this is the hardest game left. That's why. I'm sorry. There will be a watch-along for that, by the way. There will be a watch-along for that. Right, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to now redirect you to LB. Don't go anywhere. Do Nobbins raid in the chats. Let him know. We've got 115 likes, apparently. We love to see that. Let him know who sent you. Big up, my boy. Shout out, of course, as always, to all my members. Shout out to the latest member, by the way, who was Ari Valpas. I didn't see you comment in the chat either. So a silent viewer, still just as valuable as every other viewer. Thank you so much. Thank you also to Jordan Bass for your lovely super chat. If you guys want to get into this carousel next stream, you can do so by becoming a member or like these lovely people, or super chatting. It's not mandatory, of course, but it does always help. It's a thing. The Echeverry video is being worked on. I'd love to say it'll be worth the wait. I can't make that promise because I think lots of people are of the view that I'm hopefully going to say he's a wonderful player and he's going to save our season. I don't think that. I do think he's a wonderful player, but I don't think that he's going to be that. Make sure you leave a like on the video on your way out. Go enjoy LB stream. Hashtag Nobbins raid. Have a lovely rest of your evening, guys. And I'll see you all on Sunday for the Bournemouth game. Goodbye, guys.